Good morning, kids. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcorn Studios, part 3 of turning Spider-Man and Batman villains into a single villain. Now, yes, I kind of haven't watched the other ones, but I mean, you don't have to really watch the first one when it comes to just combining them. Yes, you would miss out on some amazing artwork and maybe some fantastic stories, but in the end, if you enjoyed the video, it shouldn't matter if you hopped in the latest or hopped in with the first. So, let's begin.
Today I'm finally doing another round of weird Marvel and DC fusions with Spider-Man villains and Batman villains. I've done 2 previous episodes combining their villains before, but there's still lots of really cool ones to work with. So let's get into the story and artwork,
Maybe
shall
I
we?
have watched the others.
Hit
Can't
like
tell.
if you want, subscribe
If you feel like it.
But
By
either
the way,
way,
enjoy the show.
For over a year,
The Lizard and Solomon Grundy. Not a bad choice.
Selena Stacy, better known to most as the Spider Cat, had been trapped in a dimension that was not her own, but bore many similarities to hers. She was spending her time in this world doing much of what she'd done back home, fighting crime and occasionally robbing from corrupt corporations and fat cats. She'd occasionally team up with a hero similar to herself but native to this world, Spider-Bat. But there was always some tension between them as he was not a fan of her criminal side, no matter who she was stealing from. Still, there were times when she needed his knowledge on the villains of this world's new Gotham, as many were quite formidable. One that she came across early on bore some resemblances to a flying lizard menace from her own world, but here he was arguably more monstrous. He was called Solomon Scales. He was once called Dr. Curtis Gold, and was a war veteran returning home from World War II in the mid-1940s to his loving wife and young son, Billy. He'd lost an
If you're wondering why his last name is Gold, is that Solomon Grundy's original name, before being resurrected as Solomon Grundy, was Cyrus Gold. And I actually do recommend checking out Solomon's history from when he was alive, because then you get kind of a great insight on why he even exists.
arm in the war and desperately wanted it back. He had a great relationship with his family, and his favorite part of his day was reading nursery rhymes to his son before he fell asleep.
Aww.
But even with that part of his life being so full, he still felt incomplete without his arm. Being a doctor and living in a world that had already seen its fair share of miraculous beings and mutations, he believed he could create a formula that would allow him to regrow his limbs. And not only that, but then he could give it to other amputees who'd lost limbs themselves in the war. But everyone he sought funding from just thought he was mad. Unfortunately, the limited research he'd been able to do unfunded into the regeneration ability of lizards had made him obsessed and certain that he could do what he claimed. So he found money elsewhere. He started sneaking away from his family when he could to do work for the Falcone Maggia, a crime family of New Gotham that got into its fair share of trouble with the law and needed someone to patch up their boys when they got themselves hurt on the job. It was still slower money than getting proper funding, but he was able to get the supplies he needed and even start doing some experiments on himself. Though nothing seemed to work. Yet. So Curtis continued his work for the criminals and was only supposed to be a medic for them, but one day when he was unable to heal a gravely injured crook from their ranks, he was told that he'd have to take the man's place on an upcoming job. Gold protested at first, but was too intimidated by his employers to push harder, and eventually just accepted. They were robbing a storehouse of another crime family, and the job went fairly smoothly at first. They busted in, shot up a few people there on guard, then broke into the vault. But as they were taking the money, Gold realized that there was so much of it that he could likely sneak enough into his pockets to help finish his work without them even noticing. He stuffed a few wads of cash into his coat and pants when nobody was looking. Or so he thought. When they all returned to the Falcone Maggia's safe house, the others he was with promptly ratted him out, saying they'd seen him trying to sneak away money. His pockets were emptied, and in response, he was taken off the payroll. Permanently. They plugged him full of holes and threw his body into a nearby swamp to rot. But that's not exactly what happened to him. You see, the formulas he'd already tried on himself may not have seemed to have worked, but they had just worked very slowly. Over the next few
Ooh.
decades, his body did partially deteriorate, but it was also simultaneously healing and warping due to the lizard genes he'd injected himself with.
There
By the
it
mid
is.
2010s, he'd gone through a full transformation and astoundingly reawakened with his arm fully regrown.
Woohoo!
But with much of his
Where am
mind
I?
withered away and many memories buried too deep to recall. He emerged from the swamp as a hulking, zombified lizard man, and, unfortunately, fell quickly back into a life of crime. The first people he came across were a group of goons from Wilson Dent's crime family, and something about the criminal world felt familiar to the reawakened man. When the crooks got a look at his immense strength and speed in his mutated form, they quickly decided to bring him to Dent, proposing that the man work with them all, assuming he'd be easy to manipulate given his less than fully conscious mind. One of the few things he was able to say early
What the
on
hell's
were
that?
the first few lines of an old nursery rhyme he'd often tell to his son. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, buried on Tuesday, and so on. Given that and his scaly, lizard-like appearance,
Wait, I thought he was buried on a Thursday. Eh.
he was given the name of Solomon Scales, and he quickly became one of the more formidable villains ravaging New Gotham. Though when Spider-Bat had figured out the crook's history, he had managed to, at least temporarily, stop the creature's rampages by making the man face his son, Billy Gold.
Oh.
He was obviously now a well-aged man, but even still, Curtis did recognize his son, and, for the time, did cease his rampages upon Billy's encouragement. But, with a mind as deteriorated as his, he was eventually convinced once more to return to his life of crime.
Damn.
Spider-Bat is now seeking a way to more fully restore the man's mind, so he can hold the memory of his son for longer periods of time, and remember that his criminal life is what took him from his boy in the first place. But, for the time being, New Gotham must continue to face the threat that is Solomon Scales.
And just like with any of his stories, it's always amazing. Like, this guy could literally create a comic book, and it would be the best damn thing in the world. I'd pay for it.
Another villain that bore a resemblance.
Okay, hold on. Penguin and Mysterio. I don't get this. You know what? I'm not gonna question it. I'm gonna question your artwork at the end. So let's see how well you do.
To others from Spider-Cat's world was the Emperor Mystic, a short and stout man with no actual superhuman abilities of his own, but with a fair number of tricks always waiting up his well-pressed sleeves. His true name was Quentin
Okay,
Cobblepot,
fun.
and he came from a very wealthy family of New Gotham, but was not well loved within that family by most. He was born with a long and pointed nose, and his father considered him to be very disturbing to look at, and despite it being such a small part of him, his father essentially rejected the boy from birth because of it, never giving him the care or attention he needed.
Oh,
His school
come
life
on.
wasn't much better. He never grew very tall and had a stout frame, so that paired with his long nose had many children calling him Penguin and bullying him for his appearance. With no friends and only his mother showing him any love at home, he turned to an
Aw.
obsession he'd discovered early for comfort: magic. Not
Magic.
the sort done by heroes like Dr. Zam, but more trickery and sleight of hand. He spent much of his time through to the end of high school learning to do various tricks and even building gadgets to help with his performances. By the time he was out of school, he was a master magician and inventor, and managed to get work on film sets doing special effects.
Not bad.
But even there, he often caught conversations of people making fun of his appearance, and eventually deemed he couldn't take it anymore. He wanted revenge
Hold on, folks. Gotta take a quick pause. And we're back.
on anyone who'd ever made fun of him for his looks, and with his prowess for inventions, he felt he had a simple and flashy way to achieve this. You see, Quentin also
Illusions.
thrived in the movie biz because he loved to put on a show. So when he decided to take on an alter ego to go after those who tormented him, he made it a big spectacle and even leaned somewhat into the Penguin name many had called him through his life, partially naming himself after an Emperor Penguin. He constructed the
choice.
costume of the Emperor Mystic with a fancy, altered tuxedo lined with bulletproof material and had many tricks and gadgets
Kevlar?
hidden away within it. He also used a large fishbowl-like dome to cover his head, thinking it somewhat funny for a penguin to be bobbing its head into a fishbowl for a snack. It also had smoke
That is a
swirling
little
around
funny.
inside of it to conceal his identity, only ever to take it off before killing those he sought, so that they knew why he was hunting and tormenting them. Embracing his
Ah,
strange
love
and
him.
wild side, along with getting revenge on those who'd belittled him for so long, made Cobblepot feel more alive than he ever had before. And so, he leaned farther into this identity.
Is anyone else just kind of picturing him just laughing at someone but going like almost penguin at it, just wah 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 wah, kind of that? Oh,
And
that's funny.
farther away from his career in filmmaking. He killed many of those who'd bullied him, but then moved on to pulling elaborate and fantastical robberies, and even started building a gang around him who he'd arm with more gadgets and tech to help in their crimes.
Not
When
bad.
Spider-Bat started going after
I
the
like
Mystic,
this.
Quentin got back at him by rigging up one of his more formidable goons of a similar stature to Spider-Bat with a costume that was near identical and gadgets that did the same things as the heroes. He then sent them in to commit
Oh.
crimes and get the city to turn on the hero. It was one of Spider-Bat's more frustrating adventures, though he was eventually able to put away the copycat and Cobblepot, though a master of
Perfect.
misdirection was not able to be locked up for long.
Ah, damn it. Well, alright, I gotta say, I was skeptical of this at first, but no, this turned out pretty damn well. 2 thumbs up.
We're making
Oop,
Italian
hold on,
beef.
sorry folks, we'll be right back. And we're back with what looks to be Vulture and Killer Moth. Not bad at all.
The strangest thing about
Two
the Emperor
flyers.
Mystic to Selina was that he heavily resembled the villain from her world, who was a fire-obsessed showman who'd worked in special effects with a similarly showy appearance. But even if this world's Mystic wasn't fire-obsessed, that didn't mean this new Gotham lacked a fire-flailing foe. Garfield
still
Toombs,
exists.
more commonly known nowadays as the Fire Buzzard, had had a difficult early
Fire
life
Buzzard.
in the city as an orphan,
Not bad.
with just his sister by his side to keep him company. They only wanted to be adopted together, but most families that came to meet them eventually left after getting to know Garfield better. He was a bit erratic for a kid and had an unusual obsession with fire that turned enough parents away for him to eventually convince his sister to get adopted into a family without him.
Aww.
They'd still occasionally get to see each other, but for most of his young life, he'd remain alone.
Damn,
He
that
grew up
sucks.
through the foster system, never getting adopted, and into his early adult life, he at least managed to find work in something he somewhat enjoyed, doing pyrotechnics for stage shows. He did that for a few years and eventually met and worked alongside a man named Gregory Carson, who professed admiration for Garfield's work. Toombs had made some impressive
Not bad.
inventions to be used in the stage shows, and Gregory deemed they should go into business together. It was one of the first times Toombs had genuinely felt wanted by anyone, so he eagerly agreed. Carson claimed he could manage the money side of things, while Garfield spent his time inventing. Better yet, Carson was able to get him discarded tech from various alien invasion events and altercations
what?
where the Avenging League were forced to face off against armies of powerful foes.
Okay,
Garfield
that's kinda
loved
cool.
all the access he had to materials to work with and believed that he and his business partner were going to make a killing with his
Business!
inventions.
Sorry, have to.
Garfield invented a prototype flight suit as one of their business's very first creations. But unfortunately, it would also end up being their last. He
Damn
learned
it.
that Carson manipulated Garfield into signing papers that essentially gave him no stake in their company. So almost every cent made off Garfield's inventions would go to Carson. Feeling betrayed after thinking he'd finally found someone who respected him, Garfield took his prototype and every other piece
I like what you're doing with the eyes there. That's nice.
of tech he could from the lab and fled, going underground. Carson reported
Literally.
him as a thief and a criminal, but Garfield didn't really care at that point, as when he re-emerged to New Gotham, he very much would be just that. Using the tech he'd stolen, he upgraded his flight suit further and reignited his love of pyrotechnics by making himself flame-spewing gauntlets. He found his old treacherous business partner.
Not really gauntlets, more like, attachments. A gauntlet really has to be metal that covers the fist. This is just something that's attached to the arm. So, not really a gauntlet.
And burned his home
Sorry,
to the
man.
ground. With the man inside.
Oh, damn.
He started using his new villainous identity as the Fire Buzzard to steal more pieces of technology from various sources in New Gotham to invent more and more devices, which he sold off to the highest bidders. usually other criminals of the city.
Yep,
If he
there it
couldn't
is.
get the attention and respect he'd wanted through more honest means, he'd get it through fear and lethal displays of his inventions.
Alright, Fire Puzzle. Not a bad one at all. Oh, and honestly, I like the wingsuit a lot. I would like the science behind it, but next time.
One of the most unusual encounters for
Whoa, 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 wait. What? You're having Catwoman be combined with, I don't remember how to pronounce his name, the Hunter. Huh. You know what? I could see this going both good or bad depending on the story. So let's hear it out. Oh, Craven the Hunter. That was it.
Spider-Cat was when she came across a villain that bore many resemblances to herself, even having some similarities to her own life story and sharing a first name. Selena Kravinoff had been born to a once wealthy family in Russia that was in the process of crumbling. There was constant infighting over who should get the wealth of elder members of the family as they passed, and the money that Selena's parents did have was spent as quickly as it was acquired. As a child, Selena mostly distracted herself from this by playing with her family's many purebred cats, but that couldn't keep her satisfied and entertained forever. The only time she ever enjoyed with her parents was going on hunting parties. They would go on big game hunting trips once per year as she was growing up, and Selena would anticipate these year-round, even taking acrobatics classes to improve her physicality and allow her to climb trees to get better hunting perches to shoot from. Eventually, she'd even ditch the guns and try fighting her prey up close. But by the time she was getting to the level where she could achieve this regularly, her family was falling into their final throes of collapse. Within a few months of each other, her mother took her life, and her father drank himself to death.
Damn.
With nothing left for her there, she took what money was left and began traveling the world hunting bigger and bigger game. She would sell the hides and bodies of some of her kills to wealthy people, often who resembled her own chaotic family, as a way to get money, but soon realized she could get even more by simply stealing from her clients. It was both a way to keep herself living a more upper-class life, while also taking from families she saw as unworthy of their own wealth. Though she did keep that part of her life very discreet, as she started building up a following of people who wanted to know more and more about her hunts. Photographers and journalists started reporting her hunts, and eventually she'd become a world-renowned hunter. But both Selena and her audience wanted her to take on something even bigger and tougher, which was when she got a proposal from an old relative of hers. Dmitri Sionis, known more so by some as the Black Chameleon, was Selena's much older half-brother, and had fled Russia early in Selena's life. He'd seen that the family was falling apart, but Selena had been too young back then to go with him. Now he was a crime lord in New Gotham, who'd far too many times had his goons taken down by the Spider-Bat.
Oh, Black Chameleon, Black Mask. I just got that.
And needed the hero handled. He'd gotten word of his half-sister's skills and endeavors, and offered to pay her a great sum under the table to come to New Gotham to hunt the Bat for him. After some research into who the Spider-Bat was and what he could do, she eagerly accepted, believing this hunt could be legendary. Had she managed to succeed in it, she very likely would have been right. She arrived in New Gotham and stalked the Spider-Bat for a week to learn his movements and actions, then went for the kill. Upon their first encounter, she was able to trap the spider in a net and gravely injure him, but not get the kill she was after. This pattern would continue, with the Spider-Bat getting better and better at learning her hunting tactics to evade her, making Selena more and more frustrated and more obsessed with killing the spider. She continues to stalk the roofs of New Gotham to this day.
You know what? This actually did turn out pretty damn well. Yeah, 2 thumbs up and 2 more if I had 4 hands.
Eager to finally make her kill, while also hunting down any other prey, heroes or villains alike, that she deems worthy of her skills.
Honestly, that was pretty damn good. Yeah, 4 thumbs up. And here we go.
If you want lots more of this, I've got a 3-hour compilation video with all of my previous Marvel and DC Fusion videos.
Oh,
there's a whole bunch
wow,
of Spider-Man-focused episodes mixed into that, and it's time-coded with each character so you can find whoever you're looking for. I'll have that linked in the cards in the description, and really everywhere. Plus, I'm planning to do a few Marvel and DC focused episodes in the near future, because they really are some of my favorite kinds of episodes to make. Also, high resolution art and inks for episodes go up a day before a video is released up on the Popcross Studios Patreon. So if you want the high res art from this, you might want to go check that out. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is a quote from a man named Danny Morell, who said that sometimes people leave your life because they were carrying within them the exact energy that is blocking you from becoming your highest and best self.
Ooh.
I think that's just a good reminder that sometimes things in our life may
Sometimes
feel like a
people leave
loss, but in the
because they
long
know they
term,
need
they're
to.
actually really helping us. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all on Monday for a big Multiverse Tales episode.
Well, folks, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.